The London Weekly. Catching up with the celebrities.
This is Angus Auden interviewing Boy George. Good afternoon, Boy George. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
And what have you been up to recently?
Well, last night I was at the Brits, which is quite exciting, and just been doing a bit of recording and stuff. Just worked with Mark Ronson, which is quite exciting. I got a new single coming out March 22nd.
Okay.
Amazing Grace. I'm looking to sugar, so yeah, been busy.
Yes, you kind of hit the big time with Culture Club back in the 1980s. What was the
that old cliche?
Yes, I know. What was the inspiration behind sort of like who was your inspiration as you grew up for music?
Who inspired me?
Yeah.
Oh, Bowie, obviously. That was the big one with David Bowie when I was a kid. I saw Bowie when I was 11 at Lewis Radio, and I think that was kind of life-forming stuff for me. I think my biggest influence was Bowie. I mean, it probably wouldn't have translated in my music, but as an artist, definitely Bowie. Okay,
and obviously with the big hits that you had with the band, Karma Chameleon and I Just Want to Be Loved, Do You Really Want to Hurt Me, did you think they were going to be as popular today and as big as they were back in the 80s?
I thought they were going to be popular at the time. I think when you make a record, you never know where it's going to go or whether people are going to like it. You just do what you feel, and the rest is kind of out of your hands in a sense.
And you were involved in Band Aid as well. What was that like?
Well, it was interesting because you had a lot of kind of very famous people kind of in one studio, lots of egos, but it was pretty smooth considering the amount of egos that were there. It went really well.
Yeah, because you've also had a musical in London called Taboo that was based upon your life. That was something that must have been pretty special as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing to kind of relive things like that. Yeah, it was good. I mean, the guy that played me was a Scottish guy called Ewan Morton. He was amazing. I mean, actually probably did a better job of being me than I have.
Yeah, because the other thing, I mean, obviously, it's been a lot in the press recently for negativity. The London Weekly tends to be it's a light-hearted paper for light-hearted Londoners. But what would be the sort of
light-hearted type of guy? Don't worry.
what would be the craziest thing that you've read about yourself?
What?
The craziest thing that you've read about yourself in the papers. What would be the sort of the thing that you just sort of laughed out loud and thought, what are they on about?
Most of what's written about me, I don't think it makes me laugh out loud, but most of what's written about me doesn't ever really hit the mark. I mean, I think that there's a kind of press image of you, and then there's the real you.
Yeah.
And I think you only ever really know the real person if you're friends with them or if you're close to them.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting for me is that no matter what's written about me, I get a lot of love in this country from people I don't know, which is a really beautiful thing. The fact that strangers, kind of write me letters and support me when I'm going through difficult things. Some people think that the press is kind of the voice of the people, but it isn't always.
Yeah. Because you're not just involved in music, you're also into writing books and designing clothes. And Alexander McQueen, the British fashion designer, he died last week. What's your thoughts on his death?
Just tragic, very tragic. I couldn't believe it when I heard that. I went cold, really upset. I know Alexander obviously not very well, but I know a lot of people that are very close to Alexander, people that work with him. So everybody's just really shocked by the whole thing. Because you wonder, was there anyone that could have stopped him?
Yeah.
He tried to be such a waste. I mean, he was such a talent, such a genius.
Yeah, and he was still very, very young as well. So.
Yeah, he was a baby. I mean, he's younger than me, almost 10 years younger than me.
You mentioned you were at the Brits last night. You obviously won some Brit Awards in 1984. What do you think about the music?
One Brit Award.
Well, you've also won a Grammy as well.
But, I won a Grammy. Yeah, I've won lots of things.
What did you think? What do you think about the music industry in today? What did you think about the Brits last night?
Well, I mean, I think there's always amazing music being made, not necessarily translated in what's popular or what's in the charts. But one of the great things about things like the internet and YouTube and all these kind of social networking sites is you get to hear about things that maybe you wouldn't do if you listened to the radio. So there's a lot of great things around at the moment. And the Brits really is about who sold the most records.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big kind of chart show. And it's become very American. I thought it was really well presented. The things that stood out for me last night were Kasabian. I thought they were great. They did a great performance. There was a lot of heart and soul in their performance. Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
Obviously, the fact that she made, paid tribute to Alexander McQueen. And, when you strip away all the kind of drag, there's a very talented person there.
Yeah.
She's a great piano player, she's got a great voice. And, I think for me, that was probably the highlight, the wig was pretty amazing too.
Yeah. What did you think of Liam Gallagher's actions and behaviour, throwing his award into the audience?
Well, that's what we expect from Liam. He knocked my hat off last episode. Because I went with 2 autograph books, my little niece and her friend. And my job last night was to get everyone's autograph. The most important one was Lady Gaga, and I got Liam's as well. And as he walked away, he knocked off my hat. So I think he was just in one of those moods last night.
Oh, God. And obviously, we're talking about the music industry. I mean, what do you think of programs like the X Factor and all those kind of talent shows?
Yeah, I watch them. I don't watch them religiously, but I watch them if they're on, and I'm at home. I think if it gives somebody young a chance to kind of have a career, that's a great thing. The only problem is that I don't really like competitions.
Right.
Because I don't think creativity is about competition. I think that, all of these shows, X Factor, So You Think You Can Dance, there's always loads of losers.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a show where maybe there's one winner, but that everybody gets some kind of place in it,
Well, it does tend to happen. I mean, if you look at JLS and some of the others, I mean, they're I think a rare example of a band that didn't win but have gone on have a great career. I think at the end of the day, it really boils down to talent, doesn't it? If you're talented, you will survive, and it depends on how passionate you are about what you do. Some people kind of get into this business and they just can't. They haven't got the stamina. They can't deal with it. Because there's a lot of stress. Once you get to a certain level, it gets very stressful. So, you have to have quite thick skin. You have to be quite determined. You have to be talented, though. I think the main thing. I mean, you mentioned you're releasing a new album this year. What's your album going to be like? What kind of music are you going to be sort of getting?
I've got a new single coming out March 22nd on Milk and Two Sugars, and it's a dance track with it's a duet with a Portuguese fado singer. Fado is F-A-D-O. Gypsy music.
And you're still quite prominent on the DJ scene in the clubbing scene in London.
I still get around.
Still keeping a couple of fingers in pies, as they say.
I work a lot. I do lots of different things. I think that what I try to do is just find different outlets for my creativity. That's that's what I enjoy. I enjoy the creating side of it.
Because as I say, you're into writing books, designing clothes, and also involved in photography. How do you find all the time for all of this? It's quite a lot of hobbies going on.
Well, I'm kind of basically female, so I can multitask. My soul is female. I have the soul of a woman.
Okay, and the elections are coming up. Are you going to be voting in the elections?
I certainly won't be voting Tory.
Yeah.
Sure. I think that probably they win. People, I think, have a very short memory in politics and pop. The last time the Tories were in, they did a terrible job, and people have forgotten that. You know what I mean? So now everyone's like, oh, Tory, they're going to win. I'm really basically a socialist, so I would never vote right wing. I'm sexual, I can never vote Tory.
What did you make of all the MP expenses scandals?
I got sick of hearing about it at the end of the day.
Yeah?
Yeah, I really got sick of it. It's like, any kind of news story now, they just go on and on. It's like John Terry, Gordon, MP's expenses. I don't really give a shit what they spend on. I think that, when they were taking huge amounts of money, that's outrageous, but, someone buying a trouser press or a Snickers bar, I don't care. But I do actually think that the 4 guys that they've kind of prosecuted are the 4 guys.
What would be if you were Prime Minister, what would be the first thing you might change?
If I was a Prime Minister, what would be the first thing? I would never, ever want to be Prime Minister. God, no, never. I think you have to be some kind of megalomaniac to want that job.
Now, finally, you were born in Eltham in South London.
Yeah.
What's
I was born in Bexley, but I lived in Eltham.
Okay, if you were going to take somebody around London, what would be your top 3 attractions in London to take someone to visit?
Where would I go? Probably Kew Gardens.
Okay.
Be one. That's a really difficult question. Maybe the Ritz for tea.
Okay, that's a nice little...
I think Buckingham Palace if they were a tourist.
Take a picture of tonight and keep it by your heart. Love has left its memories. There's no better way to part. I will find another love.
The London Weekly. Catching up with the celebrities.